Maria Garda. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Turku. Before that, I was working actually with Melanie at Flinders, and even before that, I was working at the University of Lodz, my home city. And while I was there, I was engaged with various projects on game culture. And I think the one that I am probably the most proud of, and this is the kind of longest ongoing collaboration, is this Center for Comics and Interactive Storytelling. So today I will be talking about one of the exhibitions there, about The Witcher 3, and the game design process in general, but because I would like to talk about different aspects of this center, which is still, you know, an ongoing process. It will be opened late 2020, early 21. And I think it's important to understand basically the context, because I think it's a very different project to other game museums or game heritage projects that I am aware of. So in a way I will start from the end. I will say a few words about Lodz, the center, and then we'll get to The Witcher, and then some conclusive thoughts on game collaborative aspects of it. So Lodz is 800,000 city in the center of Poland. It is often called the Polish Manchester because of its industrial history, in that case textile industry. So in many ways it is similar to Tampere. I think actually Lodz and Tampere are so-called sister cities. And like many of the cities with this post-industrial heritage, which follows this kind of narrative of reinventing itself, following creative industries and kind of innovation. So there's this huge ongoing project of the creation of the new city center around this kind of multimodal railway station. This is like a picture from a few years ago. So it's just a huge construction site in the middle of the city, which involves businesses but also cultural centers. So the cultural center at the intersection of it all is the so-called EC1 City of Culture. This used to be a power plant, so now it is empowering culture. And this institution has three sections. I don't know where this is kind of coming from. Is it because of my... Maybe because of that. Okay. So there are like three different museums, cultural institutions within the EC1 Center. Science and Technology Center, which is this very kind of experimental museum with interactive educational paths. And then you have the National Center for Film Culture, which is well known for its film heritage with the Polish film school like Andrzej Wajda, Polański, right? And then we have a Center for Comics and Interactive Narrative, which may sound like a maybe strange kind of marriage of convenience, but it actually, this coloration has deep roots in Polish fan culture. So since early 1990s, there was this festival of comics and graphic novel culture happening in Lodz, which with time evolved to be what I can only call a Polish Comic Con. So with, I think since 2011 or 12, I started collaborating with them and having different like game panels. Some of you were even invited guests. when you look at this history in the kind of regional context, it really makes sense. And it's kind of, it feels like a grassroots actually development. So those are the very fancy visualizations of how the museum is going to look like. Half of the museum will be dedicated to the history of graphic novels and comics, and the second half to interactive storytelling, which is, let's be honest, mostly video games, right? Some more nice pictures. So yeah, there will be like VR zone, retro gaming zone, but today, you know, I only have time to talk about one thing, so let's talk about the game lab, which is probably the most kind of demanding project we have undertaken there. So it's quite funny that maybe like 5 years ago at the kickoff of the Kickstarter event for the Pelimuseo here, I was saying that CD Projekt is doing not enough for game heritage. So in 5 years they really turned around. The Game Lab exhibition, the goal is to introduce visitors to the basic ideas of game design and development. So the goal of the whole center is educational. So basically in the graphic novel areas you will learn about how to create comics. So here you will learn how to create video games. So the interactive experience we are working on will be set in the Witcher 3 Wild Hunt environment. So we are closely working with CD Projekt. However, the playable scenes will not represent actual in-game locations. So basically, we are creating this prototype showing different stages of game development, using Witcher as the universe, as the setting. So let's go through the various stages. So this is a high concept that I was working on with my colleagues from the Łódź Art School and Technological University, Rafał Szajby and Adam Wojciechowski. And it took a long time really to figure out, you know, how to do that and which elements should we show and what really works. So we have early prototype, character design, game environment, interactive storytelling, audio production, testing, post-production. So each stage has two components. Experimental, which is the prototype that I mentioned, that you can interactive. So you have 2 access points for that, and then you have educational part, mostly interviews, but also other elements with another 2 access points. So basically, I cannot unfortunately show you the visualizations at this point because of various kind of legal reasons. However, if all the kind of stakeholders will agree on that, I hope that next year, actually, with the second edition of the Pelimuseo seminar, we can have a closed kind of beta testing of that interactive experience. So the creative director working on the execution here is Michał Staniszewski from Plastic Studios, a member of the demo scene, which is relevant for the crowd here. Known for his games for PlayStation 4, for Santa Monica Studios. So a very good game designer and a person involved with the gaming community in Poland. So I don't have time to go through it all, but I would like to look at one of the stages so you will kind of see what we are going for. So as I mentioned, you have these different access points for the experimental component. You have one HD TV where you have actually the prototype, right? So you can control it with 2 controllers. The gamepad, which is for the kind of gameplay component, and the pad, which is on a stand, which serves for configuring and changing kind of the perimeters of the scene level that you can see on the screen. So let's look at, for example, one example. Game environment. So using the tablet, you can change textures. For example, you will have a forest where the character of Geralt is roaming, and you can change textures of different elements of that setting. You can even change it to like I don't know, like solid textures, or see the so-called wireframe. You can change the lighting options, and you do that by kind of manipulating snippets of code, and you can see how the code is changing. We will have a small debug log. So we really want to see that there is also like a coding programming aspect to it behind it. And then you have the pad. So every kind of experience gives you this possibility of having a gameplay experience, but it's not necessary to kind of move on. It's always kind of optional, because not everyone is very good with gaming interfaces. So we want this to be a more kind of a playable experience. So in this particular case, we will use hidden object mechanics. So you will have to unlock different kind of elements from the Witcher universe, find it in the scene, and then you will unlock a reward. So we're kind of gamifying it. And the reward in this case will be original location designs from the process of creation of Witcher 3. So concepts that will be kind of scanned and shown here. Using two interfaces also enables cooperative mode. So one person can play, the second can manipulate with the tablet. And the use of the tablet is precisely looking at, for example, senior visitors. So, you know, people that will be probably more comfortable with using a tablet or any sort of kind of touch screen than a gamepad. And then we have the educational component, which will be interviews with game designers. This is a big oral history project, actually. We will be interviewing designers that were working on Witcher, so they will be talking, so that's on another screen, so they will be talking about creating specific locations in the Witcher game, but also we will have interviews with well-known designers from the Polish scene, talking about their interesting projects and like locations that were kind of challenging for them for some reason. And then we have infographics talking about the kind of broader context. With the game environment, we will be looking at the different inspirations for the Witcher series, which is based on the fantasy book cycle by Andrzej Sapkowski, and then you have movies, now the Netflix series coming. So we want to show the kind of transmedia aspects of it, and that games are interrelated to other media. Then we will have game production artifacts. Here we are working closely with CD Projekt. It was actually quite exciting to visit the studio and see, you know, what they were hiding in the cupboards and trying to find like this very interesting materials that haven't been shown before. And another important for me aspect was to have also fan-made artifacts. So how fans are engaging with that world. And then we leave some space for future additions if we feel like there is something missing. So it's a really huge undertaking. I have to say, a lot of moving parts. We shall see how it goes. In a year or something, you will be able to see it, hopefully. But it is very, very exciting. However, what I would like to kind of talk about in the conclusion is the broader context here. So with Jaakko and Anna Sivula, we co-authored this paper about the crowdfunding campaign for the Finnish Museum of Games, looking at how different kind of credibilities and competences are important in creation of new exhibition, new institution. And I think it goes even further because it's not only about credibilities, it's about collaboration. And I think what is really important in a project like that is to involve all the stakeholders, all of the members of the game heritage community, right? Which in this case was rather challenging, as basically it is a very top-down approach. It is a city project that is going through different funding schemes. So basically there is not much flexibility. Because when you prepare we were working on the early application, right? Whatever you promised, you have to deliver. And it is not an organic process. So basically, even though all the administration there at the City of Culture was really open and trying to understand that you cannot just in the first month of the project decide to every detail what you're gonna do, and you have new ideas and it takes time, and we are trying to incorporate that. But it's still in some ways disappointing that you cannot, if in the end you have a good idea, you cannot really change it, because some things are already fixed. And another thing that was very kind of difficult for me was that we couldn't really include the community, like retro gamers, for example, in the process at the early stage, because you have the tender procedures and information is classified. So before the tender is published openly as a call, all the description, the high concept you are working on are classified. So you cannot really involve that many people. But there are some really good sides to it, which is I think, sustainability. So you get the long-term funding. So if the city decides to support this sort of project, it will be a long-term commitment. Of course, then again, it is public money, so the press and people will look closely how you spend it, and I think that's only fair. We are trying to do the best job. But this is really good, because even if for some reason in the future the center collapses, the collections, because they are supported by the city, will most likely move to another institution, right? So this is sort of longitude support, I think, is really important. And then because of involvement of local government, you can attract bigger stakeholders, right? So working with a CD project wouldn't be possible in a kind of small retro gaming show. They are only interested, if they will commit their time and money and resources, they want this to be something on a certain level, right? So this is all very nice, but then again, it's really the main problem with this institution, as I was also responsible for the kind of long-term strategy of this center as a game heritage institution, as a cultural institution that in the future will work with the community and will kind of try to together work with the game heritage community, trying to preserve the local heritage. It is really difficult that you cannot really involve the community from the beginning, but you have to create some sort of a framework for that to happen when the institution opens the doors. So you need to think in advance of the tools they could use to work with the community. It's great that we have in Poland a lot of, I will be just finishing now, a lot of regional small retro gaming museums and institutions that I work with and collaborate, and I support them. But then what will happen in the future with them is not certain. So many people ask me, like Andreas, when a national institution will arrive. So I think we have a possibility here. But yeah, collaboration and kind of being open to have different alliances with different groups is really kind of the most difficult part, I would say, of this institutional process. And we are at the institutionalization level of it all, or stage, and I think it has very kind of new challenges. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Questions, comments?
Was it that boring?
No, Patrick?
No, I don't think it's boring at all. It's just a really hard problem you have there. Like, from my perspective, I mean, like as a theoretical frame, like I would ask you. So, is there any way that you can give as much power as possible to these sort of disempowered actors, while still sort of paying a lip service or staying just barely within the limitations of the sort of state top-down infrastructure? Like, I mean, how far can you go? Do you have to do what they really want, or do you just have to tell them to?
Well, at the moment I'm only, an expert there. So I think the job, so they don't have a game curator at this moment, and I think they need a person, because they are excellent at working with the comics, graphic novel culture, because they've been there in the grassroots movement for like 20, 30 years, right? So they have this kind of legitimacy in that area, or credibility, as we spoke about. But with games, they haven't engaged with people that much. They used work of some experts as myself. But it's a very kind of with the current kind of milestones and how it is unfolding. I think before opening the museum, it's really impossible. And then I think if it only starts when you open the museum, I think it's too late. So that's how I see it.
Andreas?
Technical question. So how are you implementing the idea that the visitors can manipulate the Witcher settings? Is it that you have access to the engine, the game engine?
No. So basically, we have from CD Projekt Red, we have assets, and this is, as I said, not like we're not recreating or using the actual scenes or levels or environment from the game. We are creating a new environment, new prototype in Unity using the assets that we got from CD Projekt.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
More questions? Okay, Mirek?
Okay, thank you, Maria. And I think it's great you mentioned that this kind of institution have to, maintain many kinds of credibility. And for example, involving CD Projekt is a great idea because, it makes it attractive. But of course, it's, not as great for critical perspective because, for example, as we know, CD Projekt doesn't like to present to broaden this story that it started as pirate initiative, basically. But I think, and that's the question, do you think are those kinds of institutions have to be just kind of mainstream, in kind of critical terms, maybe, to educate, make it attractive, and make, to critical discussion, reserved for, circles like ours? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a really complex kind of situation because we are talking about spending public money and people are looking closely at it. So when you open the museum, you need this kind of spectacular mainstream success which Witcher can deliver. But then again, so I was hoping that with temporal exhibitions and different kind of smaller initiatives, we can find the balance between the kind of mainstream Witcher and this kind of introducing people to game design thing and looking at games in more critical ways. But that again depends on having good curatorship, which is something we all need.
More questions, comments?
I have a last question,
Yeah.
and so this is something that I'm curious about. So if you think this is sort of beyond the line, just let me know. So is there a difference in doing something with the game's heritage in Nordic countries versus, for example, doing it in Poland? Also looking at the political situation and maybe the ways in which you can include minorities or have to watch out for sort of political powers butting in and what you get to say or what you don't?
That's a very sensitive question, yes.
That's why the pre-text.
Well, of course, like we know the political situation in Poland is very complex and there is a lot of tensions, which, then the city institution is always like the highest ranks are, changing with political shifts. So of course, there are certain tensions, but as long so far we didn't have any problems, with. I was talking about gender equality with the interviews and trying to engage also girls in the game development process. We will also have next to the exhibition we will have workshops for schools. So this kind of gender equality aspect, like everyone understands, that wasn't a problem. So I think because. It's a fantasy game, Witcher, so it doesn't really, if it was like a more historical game, I think that might be more problematic with the current Polish historical politics and how you approach, the national history. But so far, the games we are working with, we didn't have problems. But the main kind of difference I see between, for example, Finland and Poland is not on the kind of political level with the game heritage community, it's about the scale. I think that the biggest problem Poland has is that it is too big to just have one institution, like it is here. Well, of course, the National Library and different libraries also work with video games, but there is a lot of collaboration and kind of, it's enough to have the museum in Tampere. That's at least how I see it from my perspective. But in Poland, every kind of region has its own project and it's kind of a lot of competition. So I would say that's the main kind of difference. And then what Mirek was already talking about, that the kind of, there's a lot of tension between and then cultural institutions with a very top-down approach. And this is something like we would really like to bury the hatchet and work together, but this is something that I think still needs to be done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I have to finish.
Okay, thank you. So we have one more.